Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Interesting geometries sometimes arise on the chessboard. In the game I'm going to talk about today, my opponent's king and queen became curiously isolated from the rest of their pieces in the middle game, in what I've labelled a triangle of doom. They also led with an unorthodox opening, the Mengarini Opening, which is where white starts with the waiting move of pushing a flank pawn to one square to a3. Please enjoy. Let's start with a quick review of the game. I had the black pieces in this game. Chess.com's algorithm, I think I played relatively well, 87.3 accuracy, opponent somewhat less accurately. We both, however, did make a blunder each, but I made perhaps less inaccurate moves. And I did manage to capture a lead and mostly maintain it throughout the whole game, which wasn't very long. Now let's have a look at the analysis. So this game finished with only 22 moves. I had the black pieces, opponent white. They led with e4 and I played e5, and then they played a3. And I think this is, the Mengarini Opening. So the Mengarini Opening, I think, usually leads with the a3, and then basically white is very, very flexible in potentially what they can do next. Now, in this position, basically we're still equal. So even though they perhaps give a little bit of lose a little bit of advantage just being first, certainly by no means after e4 is this a bad move. However, in this position, I thought I can just straight up take the opening. So why not do that? Now, Stockfish reckons that actually cedes some advantage to white. Developing the knight would have been better. But I thought, I like playing a little bit aggressively here. So I thought this was potentially a good principle. And they make a mistake. So here they play the knight, and that now allows me to push the pawn further forward, immediately, bringing a question on what they are going to do with that knight. Now, the knight probably could go into this position here, but here my opponent, interestingly, decided to straight up undevelop that knight. And so here I am effectively several moves ahead, despite the fact that I'm playing with the black pieces. So knight f6, they play d3, which is, I suppose, a good move. So now locking the center. I develop the other knight, so knight c6. Now they bring queen f3. So now why is this problematic? So let's have a look at their pieces. So this pawn move now blocks this bishop. That bishop can't really develop. This knight can't develop into the more natural squares. I suppose it could develop here, but of course that blocks that bishop in then as well, so it's problematic. This queen move doesn't directly really threaten anything. No, that's well defended, and it also now blocks in the natural development square of their knight. I suppose the knight could still develop here, but blocking in their bishop. So this is probably a problematic move, and Stockfish didn't like it. Minus 1.29. I developed bishop e7, h3. Develop my other bishop, so I'm now basically fully developed. They play bishop e2. Here I decided to push my queen forward, so queen d6. So obviously I could potentially castle, but what I saw was the opponent had really sort of locked up their pieces on the queen side, which means there isn't going to be much of an attack on this side. While, both bishops potentially stare down this side. A queen is here as well. Once the queen moves, knight comes out. So they can potentially bring a lot of attackers to the king side. So my idea was to castle queen side in this game. Opponent plays queen g3, pop the pawn forward to g6. Now bishop g5, an attack on the knight. I thought, well, let's trade. So Stockfish didn't necessarily like that move, but I thought it was potentially quite okay, because at this point I'd already decided that I was going to castle the other side. Queen g7, doesn't really do very much, I think. So first, Let's get the king out of there, out of danger. And as I said before, with this structure of their pawns, their bishops have lost. They've basically traded away their active pieces. Queen is the only active piece in my territory. Basically, still on their starting squares. I thought I was probably doing reasonably well in this position. So, threatening the pawns, like, whatever, here with an attack there. That's fine. I thought here I would move the rook here first. Now, as you can see, Stockfish reckons there's another line of attack here. But what I was thinking of doing was going to double up my rooks and then launch a fairly strong attack. And that king still hanging about in the center. They bring queen back to f3, which makes sense, but not with my rooks doubled up. They push the pawn forward to g4, and of course, they have some problems here because there is some weakening on this side of the sort of king side defense. That knight is still hanging there. That knight's hanging there. The king can't castle, and even if the king wanted to go to this side, moving that pawn, I think, substantially weakens that side because now I've got h5. What are they going to do? Because if they capture, then that's lost. If they try to push forward, I can capture. If they do nothing, that captures. It is not good. It is not good for them. So they really needed to have just pulled their queen back, accepted the loss. But here, whack that knight, never left its starting square. That comes with check. That now further forces a rook trade, so basically straight up the piece, and now I've got that infiltration. That rook can't do anything because that knight is still jamming, basically still jamming up the works, having not developed, having not left. King to king d2, queen there now, and look at this triangle. That, these three pieces, a king, queen, and this lonely pawn there is just isolated, trapped, isolated from anything else. These pawns aren't doing anything. These pawns form part of the barricade that sort of have locked in their monarch. So things doing, not going well now. So, mate into queen goes there, and pretty much fairly easy checkmate next turn. So if they try to move the knight out of the way, that would be checkmate. Any other moves here, queen here would be checkmate. So, the opponent makes one final h-pawn move, queen e1 checkmate. Good game, GG. What went wrong for my opponent? Although a3 didn't place white at a disadvantage, it effectively resulted in a loss of tempo. This allowed me to take the center with my pawns. Their inaccurate maneuver in developing and then undeveloping the knight resulted in a further falling behind. Then, for almost the entire game, my opponent's queen was their only active piece, leading to an even further loss of tempo with it being harassed by my less valuable pieces. Once I had infiltrated my opponent's position and back rank with my rook and queen, creating the triangle of doom, the game was over. This game demonstrates the rationale for the general opening principles. Try to control the center with your pawns and take the center with both if you can. Don't bring out your queen early without good reason. Develop your pieces, prioritizing knights over bishops. Castle to move your king out of the center and to activate your rook. I hope you found this game interesting, and thanks for watching.